All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's event looking at new data on Dynamics GP in the cloud. I'm Adam Berezin from MSDynamicsWorld.com, and I want to thank everybody for joining us today. We've got a great panel discussion ready to go, and we're excited to start diving into some exclusive new data on Dynamics GP users and partners' current views about cloud computing, what's working today, GP customers, future plans, and how cloud investments will be changing, as well as how partners see technology moving from on-premise to cloud and hosted services. So as we get started, I wanted to review the overall agenda today and do a bit of housekeeping to set things up. We do welcome your feedback today, and you can use the Q&A block on the right-hand side of your screen to ask questions anytime. We'll be taking at least 2 breaks during the event to take your questions. We'll start things off here by introducing our panelists, and we'll move ahead straight into a discussion of our survey results and what they say about the larger GP landscape for new and existing solutions and customers. We're going to look at the data, some participant feedback, and we also invite you to comment and ask questions of our panelists. Then we'll be setting aside some time in the second half to have our panelists each take a few minutes to speak more specifically about their own company's services and solutions. We'll take more questions after those mini presentations before we wrap up. So it should be a fun hour here, and let's get started. So today we have with us 2 real Dynamics ERP veterans. Tyler Derner is Vice President of Sales at WatServe. Tyler, welcome. And Linda Rose is the founder and CEO of RoseASP. Linda, it's great to have you with us. I'd like to ask each of you to just take a couple of minutes right now to introduce yourselves and say a bit about your businesses. Tyler, would you like to start?
Sure, happy to. Thanks, Adam. So, Tyler Derner here from WatServe. I run our sales team and kind of our dynamics practice here at WatServe. I'll kind of go a little bit in when we do the company overview on the products and services that we sell. This is our second in 2 days of these webinars with MS Dynamics World. Happy to support the education process here as it comes to cloud deployments, and looking forward to the next hour and see how we can help.
Great. Thanks, Tyler. Linda?
Hi, this is Linda Rose with RoseASP. We've been working with the Dynamics products in the cloud for the last 16, 17 years, and we service hundreds of customers worldwide, but mostly based here in North America. So we're excited to be on the call today. We'll talk a little bit at the end about upgrading to the cloud and how we've achieved that with many of our existing GP customers who started on-premise. So I'm excited about our next hour and looking forward to speaking to all of you.
Great. Thanks, Linda. Thanks, Tyler, as well. So now moving forward, so let's actually move into and look at the new survey results. And first, I just want to give you a little bit of background about the survey. So MSDynamicsWorld.com ran a survey for its readers aimed at Dynamics ERP customers and partners in March. We had 284 valid responses from customers, VARs, and other Dynamics consultants. We also excluded ISVs and people who said they had other roles in the Dynamics ecosystem. So we had a broad range of responses from people with different product interests. Over 100 people indicated that they were either GP customers or partners, and a few others were excluded as ISVs or other roles, as I mentioned earlier. Quite a few GP participants also reported working with another product, most commonly Dynamics CRM. It's about 25% of those people. The pie chart that you see on the right is for the overall participation in the study, but the breakdown of 53 GP customer organizations and 50 professionals tracks quite closely to those overall participant levels. So now we're going to transition to looking at the GP-specific findings. So GP customers are using the cloud for a range of business needs today, but what we'll see shortly is that GP itself is only running in the cloud for a small number of our survey participants. One explanation is that 83% of GP customers who participated said they have owned GP for 5 or more years. What is interesting here is that both Microsoft Cloud Technology and private cloud technology are both well used in GP customer organizations already. It's interesting because a lot of what we will review in the rest of the panel discussion today revolves around some of those choices between Microsoft's cloud and the private cloud, and we'll be paying special attention to considerations related to GP in a cloud or hosted environment. So as I was saying, only 5 of the GP customers we surveyed reported running GP in a cloud environment today. But with so much other cloud adoption, email and payroll to CRM, GP customers are clearly looking to take business processes off-premise. So a question that we have for our panelists, when you work with a GP customer, is it common to see them already having made other kinds of cloud investments, and if so, what kinds? Tyler, why don't you go first if you'd like to answer?
Sure, thanks, Adam. So this is absolutely very common in what we see across our customer base as well as kind of our prospects. So with what Microsoft's doing with Office 365 and CRM Online, it's very, very easy to kind of get your feet wet, so to say, with cloud-based deployments. And I think part of the reason why you see the ERP side of things maybe being a little bit lacking in moving up to the cloud is due to the nature of what these products and services are used for. You know, if email is down for, 15, 20 minutes, half an hour kind of thing, it's not the end of the world to the business. Same thing with CRM, right? If a salesperson can't update their forecast for, 15, 20 minutes, half an hour, even half a day, it's not the end of the world. It doesn't affect the core business, where the ERP tends to be, a little bit more the backbone, or what we like to call mission-critical applications. I mean, these run the businesses. If a customer can't ship something, can't take orders, can't process invoices, now you're having a real net effect on the bottom line of that organization and its effectiveness. So I think that's why, some of the less or not mission-critical applications were the first to make it up to the cloud. But now kind of the ERP is heading right behind it as, internet connection becomes more reliable and that kind of thing.
Great. Thanks, Tyler. Linda?
Yeah, I would have to agree. I mean, we see a lot of our prospects and customers using O365, and almost everybody processes their payroll outside of their accounting system. So those are two very common things, and those have been around for some time, at least payroll has anyway. But as Tyler said, accountants tend to be a conservative crowd, and so keeping their data secure and in their own facility is kind of been important to them. But I think people are getting more comfortable now, especially with, there's multiple products out there available now in terms of cloud deployment of ERP. So I think people are opening up to that more. And as their servers are getting older, they're looking for other ways to deploy their existing systems or new systems. And cloud's certainly an offering there that people are accepting now.
Great. Thanks, Linda. So here we actually wanted to learn more about what aspects of deploying cloud solutions have worked well and where the challenges and pain points might commonly lie. So to talk about the problems, look at the bottom of that list with calculating ROI. So another question for our panelists, and Linda, I'll start with you this time. Do you have the ROI or value discussion often with clients or with their partner? And if so, what do you find is a helpful way to approach it?
Well, every customer is different. Our customers that are new companies where they don't have the infrastructure in place, they don't have a team of technical folks in place, it's an easier calculation for them because it's a considerable investment that they need to make. So for them to go cloud, it's almost, that's their first choice. When you have existing customers who have the infrastructure in place, and unless it's an aging infrastructure, and we're getting to that point where people are starting to see their infrastructure aging, they have have to make that determination, do I keep my hardware in place and just upgrade there, or do I make the investment on hardware? Either they have the people in place or they don't. So, that ROI calculation is a little bit more difficult for them to go through. But, some people say, hey, we just don't want to make the investments in hardware going forward, and we want our people to be a bit more virtual than they have been, and, providing them with a cloud solution gives them that opportunity as well.
Great. Thanks, Linda. Tyler?
Yeah, I mean, in addition to kind of what Linda's saying from an infrastructure perspective, I think a lot of the value that we like to try to talk about isn't so much technical or server related. It's around people and risk mitigation, right? As with any Microsoft-based solution, there's maintenance that needs to happen, there's backups that need to happen, there's a ton of professional services that need to happen to keep these things running. So, having that people and that expertise to keep the ERP up and running is kind of where we like to have the value and ROI conversation. Like what happens if an IT person quits, right? How do you know that your stuff is still backed up, still maintained, still kept in a reliable state so that if something happens, everything's available? So that's kind of the ROI and value discussion we like to have with customers and partners from a people and a professional services side of things, in addition to obviously having the hard cost discussion about on-prem and buying infrastructure and deploying it in their facilities versus doing it in a cloud deployment like we do.
Great. Thanks, Tyler. So in this slide, there's actually a lot to try and unpack on this slide. The main thing to pay attention to, I think, is the yellow columns, which indicated the likelihood that partners still recommend GP on-premise, with many recommending on-premise all the time or most of the time. So there are still a lot of on-premise GP customers, and we know that over 80% of participants in our survey have had GP installed for 5 or more years. But for this question, partners say they see the new implementations going to off-premise to some kind of hosted environment at least. So a question for the panelists, and Tyler, I will start with you. For GP customers on the call today, what are some of the best reasons they should be thinking of alternatives to on-premise next time they decide to upgrade or migrate?
It comes down to the individual, as Linda was saying before, CFO. Not a lot of CFOs like to part with large sums of money up front for software and servers and that kind of stuff. So having the conversation about changing the spend from a capital expenditure to an operational one, most CFOs would rather spend a few $100s a month on something than tens of thousands up front. Also, when you have the conversation about, maintaining and the services required, as I was saying before, about maybe having to add additional people in IT, CFOs are generally not a big fan of that if they don't have to. We like to say that, we run the ERP side of things and keep the lights on so that they can run their business. Hiring people to do ERP maintenance and deployments in IT is not part of most companies' core business, and that's kind of the decisions that we like to try to talk about, the CapEx versus OpEx conversation, and then the HR people side of things as well.
Thanks, Tyler. Linda?
Well, so most of our, obviously most of the existing GP customers have already made that investment in the software. So really they look at it as, okay, I've got my annual maintenance, but the part that always comes as a surprise is typically the cost to upgrade. And that's something that people don't always have budgeted for, or a little surprised when they get the quote back from, their partner in terms of the upgrade. One of the reasons that people use us for their deployment, their cloud deployment, or take their existing GP license and put it in the cloud with us is once you're in our cloud, that cost goes away. So we take care of, like as in a true SaaS model, we take care of all the service packs and the upgrades, not only at the operating and the SQL level, but also at the GP level and the ISV level as well. So there is no longer that monthly, or there is no longer that surprise in terms of upgrading. And then now customers are more likely to to, stay current, right? I mean, one of the reasons people don't migrate to every new version that comes out is really that cost of that migration. And if that's not something that you're going to have to shell out dollars for because now you're in the cloud, you are more likely to stay current with the software. And that's typically what we see with the existing GP customer base.
Great, thanks, Linda. And I also want to know if either of you have any other takeaways from the comments you saw on the slide from participants. Linda, if you have anything, maybe you can go first.
Well, again, people want to make sure that they can stay current, and whether that's using a cloud deployment to help you do that, or staying on premise, but really eliminating the costs associated with staying current and eliminating as many costs, unplanned costs as they can. So going cloud is really the way to do that, and which is why a lot of people have gravitated to Office 365, right? I mean, it's just their Outlook and their Office and their Exchange it all stays current, and they don't have to plan or budget for that going forward. So, it's a popular reason to head towards the cloud.
Yeah,
great, thanks. Tyler, any?
Yeah, no, thanks. I guess I'd be surprised, with bullet 3 that 90% of new implementations are done in attendance on Azure. I don't know if that was across one partner kind of making that comment, or if that's an aggregate across everybody, or all the partners that were surveyed. My guesstimate would be that that's drastically high if it's across the entire GP ecosystem. And the other thing I'd say is we see most of our clients still doing a, not necessarily a true software as a service type model, but most of our clients are still either bringing a owned perpetual license that they've either had or have purchased direct from a partner, and providing that license to us from a hosting perspective, and then we're basically licensing all the stack software, as we call it, so Windows and SQL and RDS and all the other components. We're licensing that in a SaaS model, but most of our clients are still bringing their perpetual or owned GP license.
Great, thanks, Tyler. So for this slide, so how do GP users expect their cloud solution investments to change in the next year? I wanted to actually just show this chart to make the point that GP users, even those in this survey who are longtime users, do actually have plans to continue increasing their GP investments. So moving on, so the top areas where GP customers plan to add cloud services. What's actually really notable here is that ERP is one of the most common places that GP users are looking next to make investments in the cloud. For a GP customer investing in cloud infrastructure, I wanted to get your view on how to get started. Tyler and Linda, I'm actually referring to you. There may be different firms they work with, their partner, and also a cloud services provider. But how do you believe they should divide up responsibilities and expectations in those service relationships? Tyler, I'll go to you first for this one.
Sure. We've always said in the past that the relationship works best when it's a three-legged stool. So us from a hosting perspective, the customer from an end user perspective, and the VAR from the VAR perspective. So we don't replicate any of the services that a traditional Dynamics VAR does. So, we don't do the upgrade services, we don't do report writing or modifications or any of that kind of stuff inside the application, but we absolutely need to be plugged in to understand what impacts those changes or needs from the business are having as it relates to the underlying infrastructure. So that three-legged stool is critical to make sure that we're all on the same page. We work best when we're viewed as a customer's outsourced IT department. And we become that trusted advisor, and that's the relationship that has typically worked best in the past.
Thanks. Linda?
Yeah, similar type situation. I mean, we work very closely with our partners, our Dynamics GP partners, and every Dynamics GP partner has a cloud provider that they're comfortable with. And so, you have to define that relationship. And really for the customer, they can reach out to either us or to them. We obviously don't do the consulting either in terms of, helping them through the application. But, if they call us because they're not sure who to call, if they should call their partner or they call us, if it's something that we can handle, which would be an infrastructure related question or a printing question, we'll take care of that. But if it's something that the partner needs to do, then we'll immediately drop it into the partner's queue for case management, and vice versa. If the partner gets a call through their technical support team and it happens to be something that we should address, then they'll immediately drop it in the queue to us. So we work pretty hand in hand with our partners, and make sure that we're a seamless interface to that customer. But our our hosting customers reach out to us as much as they probably reach out to the partners if they need us, right? And if they don't, they're working directly with the partner for all the application questions. But we know our customers well, and they know they can call us at any time.
Great. Thank you, Linda. So a GP partner view, top skills for a successful cloud deployment. So as you can see here, VARs rate security, disaster recovery, support, and Dynamics GP knowledge as the top skills and competencies that determine the success of a cloud deployment. Linda, I'll defer to you first on this. Is this what customers should expect from their cloud provider?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, one of the reasons why people go to the cloud is that they either had a backup failure. I mean, when we were a Dynamics partner, every year somebody would come to us and say, gosh, we thought we were backing up our data and we had an issue and we went to go restore and we realized we really haven't been backing up our data for the last 3 months, and then, you're trying to rebuild their transactions for them. So, having backups and disaster recoveries is a given, and they expect that with every partner, and it's very important to people, obviously, as well as data security, making sure their data is secure and no other cloud customer can see their data. It's segregated by itself. So those are given. Compliance requirements, we see more of that, and that's something that we really focus in on. We work with a lot of publicly traded companies that have HIPAA requirements or FDA requirements, and that's a higher level of compliance requirements than a typical customer. So, it's something that people are looking for. That's why people don't go to somebody like Rackspace or Amazon, because those compliance requirements can't be met in those types of environments, and it is something that we're seeing more and more of, where people need that level of compliance and are looking to their cloud provider to provide that. And of course, the skill set, running Dynamics GP in the cloud is not the same thing as running Office, especially if you have a variety of third-party solutions, and almost every Dynamics GP implementation has at least one third party, if not more, and it's really key in knowing how to make sure that all of those run efficiently and properly together, whether that's on multiple servers or from a cloud to a cloud. So if you're using Concur or some other cloud solution, be able to connect, or either even CRM Online, to be able to connect and integrate with those and have those integrations up and running all the time. That's pretty high expectation of a cloud partner to be able to deliver on those things.
Great. Thanks, Linda. Tyler, would you like to add to that?
Yeah, no, I mean, it's pretty much the same commentary. I mean, we're doing, backups for our clients almost every 15 to 20 minutes to minimize kind of that, recovery point and recovery time in the event that something does happen to GP, to minimize that data loss. And, those are the kind of investments that, cloud providers can afford to make, because we're spreading it across multiple clients, where a GP customer on their own couldn't afford the technologies in SANS and other things to facilitate that type of risk mitigation. And that's really what customers are looking for when they go to the experts, right? When they go to someone like Rose or like us, they're looking for that expertise to make sure that the risk to the business is minimized.
Great. Thanks, Tyler. Okay, so now actually we're going to take a few minutes to hear some in-depth information about our panelists' organizations and how they can help GP customers make the transition from on-premise to a cloud environment. Tyler, why don't you go first? So I'm actually going to, there you go, you should have presenter privileges now. So take it away when you're ready.
Okay, thank you. So just a bit of a background on WatServe. So, you know, we are 100% focused on the Dynamics ERP products from a hosting perspective. So, you know, we don't do SAP or Oracle or QuickBooks or any of those kinds of things. You know, the Dynamics products, they take a level of sophistication and knowledge, and that's where we've decided to make our investment. So, you know, we can help from a GP perspective in just hosting it in a, you know, customer-provided license. We can help with Office 365, subscription licensing, all that kind of stuff. So, you know, I don't think if we look across our customer base, across NavAX, GP, SL, all of them, I'd probably wager to say that no two are exactly the same. If you look at across industry, ISVs, solution size, scale, all that kind of stuff, they're all different. So knowing kind of the complexities and intricacies that go into these things and being able to custom engineer solutions for customers with partners to kind of deliver that ROI. We are providing hosted services today for users coming in from around 60 countries around the world. So, you know, where there are larger deployments, you know, we can help engineer out latency problems and that kind of stuff as we go around the world. So last year we were fortunate enough to take on a partnership with Brookfield Asset Management. As part of Brookfield now, we're part of an organization that has $225 billion under asset management and 50,000 employees worldwide. So from a risk mitigation perspective, you know, we are absolutely the largest dynamic hosting partner on the planet. We're not going anywhere. The investments I'll talk about here in a little bit, specifically in supporting Dynamics GP, you know, that Brookfield has enabled us to do now, I think is going to add a lot of value to our customers. So where we like to say we add value, we've talked a lot about infrastructure, we've talked a lot about people today. So if you look in the bottom left corner, if you look at what comprises our monthly fees, about 60% of our monthly fees is stuff a customer would have to go buy anyway. So that's the physical hardware, the physical infrastructure, you know, the Microsoft software that sits on top of it, and space in a data center. That would be comparable to a rack space, comparable to an Amazon. I will also say comparable to an Azure. That's 60% of what comprises our monthly fees is stuff you got to do anyway. Where we add the value is the other 40%. So it's the technical support, and I'll differ technical support from operational support. So we can monitor Dynamics GP for problems that are going to pop up that are going to cause an issue for you down the road and proactively intervene. So we can say that, oh, we might want to make these tables smaller because they're going to impact performance before our customers ever know that they're going to have a performance problem. And then you're in a reactionary mode with an upset customer and an upset end user where we can try to mitigate that by intervening proactively. We do include 24/7 by 365 support. We don't charge more for after-hours support. We don't charge more for providing, you know, end users or making changes. You know, it really is an all-inclusive support model, and it's dedicated support. So, you know, if you worked with Matt on your GP application installation or upgrade, you know, you're going to talk to Matt from a ongoing support perspective. He's going to be there. We don't parachute out our quote-unquote A-team when you guys get into a support mode. It's the same team, it's the same core group of people. If I look at kind of the deployments available today, we've got a few different options for people. So currently today, I mean, you can go out to Microsoft Azure, you can provision a set of servers using a credit card, and you can deploy GP on Azure, absolutely no problem. We can help with that, we can support that, we can help you make sure you pick the right servers. We also have our WatServe private cloud. This is where we've got the Dynamics GP uptime guarantee, the custom infrastructure, custom engineering. This is kind of where our bread and butter has been over the years with the 24/7 by 365 support. And we're seeing more and more with the hybrid cloud approach, as we said, kind of combining a cloud-hosted solution for the ERP with maybe an on-premise SharePoint deployment with, email with Office 365. So how that whole picture comes together, how they integrate, how they talk to each other, that's where we can kind of drive a lot of value for customers and partners, because these are things that are unique. Coming soon, coming out here, I think at Amplify in another month, we are going to be debuting and showing off our Rapid Azure Deployment Portal. What this is going to enable partners to do is, in a matter of about 10 minutes, clicking through a set of, I think it's 9 screens the last time I took a look at it. So in 10, 15 minutes, 9 screens, fill out a bunch of forms, and basically have a customer up and running on Azure in about an hour or two. There's no need to phone us from a partner perspective. It's all a la carte, click through, and this is going to allow partners for both upgrades and net new implementations to get customers migrated up to the cloud without really having to know the ins and outs and the intricacies of doing Azure deployment. So what we're going to enable partners to do is have that cloud competency and that cloud background from Office 365 to Azure-based GP deployments in a very quick and easy-to-use manner. So, I think one thing that we should probably talk about, not quite sure the technical level of people kind of on the phone. So what is Azure? We've talked a little bit about it, but it's Microsoft's cloud computing platform. You can pretty much deploy anything on Azure. You can build your set of servers, you can deploy it, you can manage it, but as I said before, it really is a set of infrastructure. It's not a managed service with, the technical support, and not only technical support, but the ERP expertise that customers and partners are looking for. So what is Azure missing? So if you were to go today, and if you don't know how to engineer deployments in Azure, there is no application level SLA. There is no professional onboarding support. You've got to know what you need and how to deploy it and how to provision it and how to choose the right set of everything to make sure that your GP application is going to work properly when you finally go to install it in the cloud. There is no 24/7, 365 support unless you're paying for premium support, which is expensive. Out of the box, there's no system monitoring, and there are no backups. This is where I say kind of the managed service fills the gap. So if we go back to that pie chart, that's the 60% that you're getting is basically that set of infrastructure. The 40 that we provide is this layer of professional services. So, so this is basically the gap that we're closing through our professional services, even on top of Azure. So if we look at which cloud is a better fit for you, from a private cloud perspective, we're obviously not going to be getting rid of that side of our organization. That's the dedicated infrastructure, the name support, custom engineering, high touch, guaranteed uptime, that dedicated, reliable private cloud that everybody's been looking for. When we look at the WatServe Rapid Azure Deployment Portal, we're happy to pass along Microsoft's SLAs. You can engineer for high availability, so you get the SLAs through the portal. They're less complex solutions that are up there. It is going to be a through partner program, so we'd be happy to work either with your Dynamics VARs to understand what that looks like and get them set up to get you guys up and running on Azure. And they are automated, like I said, so there is literally within an hour or two of going into the portal, you can have your GP instance up and running and provisioned on Azure with GP 2016. With Linda, choosing the right provider, there's not one of us who's right for everybody. Talk to other GP users within industry complexity and size. How is your environment priced? There are a lot of variability out there. Some are more subscription, where it's a per user per month model. Others are environment-based pricing, where you get a price for a server and it stays roughly the same throughout the course of the month or throughout the course of the year. So depending on the company, one may be more attractive to the other. And then again, if there's dedicated end-user support. So like I said before, our relationship works best when we've had direct access to the end customer and provide that three-legged stool and that value that the companies are looking for. So that's what I kind of wanted to run through. We had less time yesterday on the AX presentation, so I tried to pare the slides back a little bit, but happy to answer any questions going forward. You can either reach out to myself or Teresa, and we're happy to work with you guys going forward.
Great. Thanks a lot, Tyler. Linda, I'm actually going to pass it over to you now.
Good, great. So I'm going to take a slightly different approach to explaining a little bit how we are, because what I really wanted to do is address the audience and the common questions that we typically get from our GP customer base and our GP partners in terms of what's involved in moving to the cloud. And similar to WatServe, we focus 100% on the Dynamics products, with about 85% of our customer base actually being Dynamics GP customers. And I think that revolves around the fact that we were a long-time Dynamics GP partner. Actually, for 25 years, we had our own Dynamics GP partnership practice. And we sold that a few years ago because simultaneously while we had that going on, we also had RoseASP. And so we decided that we wanted to make the shift complete to the cloud and actually not compete with any other Dynamics GP partners in the ecosystem. So we sold our consulting practice and just have now focused 100% on our cloud practice. So again, that's why we have such a strong Dynamics GP customer base. So when I speak to existing customers, which apparently we have a lot on this call that are still on-premise, here are the two most common questions that I get asked. And I want to really basically explore these two particular areas right now. So the first question that we always get asked is, well, what exactly do I need to bring if I'm going to the cloud? And the quick answer is, you just bring your GP license, because everybody at this point has made that investment in their GP license, and that's really all you need to bring, because we're going to provide everything else. So when it comes time to do your annual maintenance with Microsoft, you can dump your SQL cows or your runtime licenses if you are actually paying for runtime licenses, or if you actually purchase SQL Server for your own system internally, now you can do away with that because we're going to provide all these things for you. Most of our clients still use the Windows client versus the web client. You have that option in our environment to use one or the other, but if you are going to use the Windows client, we are still required legally to provide Word, Office, and Outlook. So, and that means also that you could run this on a Mac or whatever. All you have to do is basically connect to our cloud, and you'd have all the tools available for you. This also includes ISV products. So as I mentioned earlier, installing GP and running it is one thing, but connecting all your ISV solutions is something else, and making sure that they all work properly together. I think one of our more complicated customers has up to 12 ISV solutions that they use in addition to Dynamics GP. They're a very complicated organization. They have a database that's well over 400 gigs. And so having their ISV solutions work with their GP was very important for them, and it's very important for us as well as the rest of our customer base. But what this also does, moving to the cloud, gives you the opportunity to try an ISV solution that maybe you weren't using before, because once you move to the cloud, you can actually mix and match licenses. So you could take your on-premise GP license and actually marry that up with a subscription license from an ISV solution. So maybe you want to add Macorma, or maybe you want to add, a Wensoft, well, it's not called Wensoft product anymore, but a myriad of other ISV solutions, and you maybe want to try them out, or you want to try some document imaging out. You can do that and not actually have to make that investment. So that's another beauty of going to the cloud or moving your licenses to the cloud, because now you can marry up subscription with your on-premise license. The other question that we get asked, or the second most frequently question we're asked, is what's the process for moving to the cloud? So we've basically defined that in 3 simple steps, and it's a process that we've followed a long time. We have probably, honestly, I would say maybe 20 to 25% of our existing customer base actually started out on-premise. So 75% are new, they've never been an on-premise install, but we have about 25% of those customers that were on-premise customers and decided to take their existing GP license and move it to the cloud. So this is this process that we go through for those existing customers. So most of our customers, when they do want to move to the cloud, they do it in conjunction with an upgrade. So as you probably have all heard, GP 2016 is coming out on May 1st. And a lot of people are going to look at that as an opportunity to maybe, think about, hey, maybe it's time, because we don't have the infrastructure in place for this new version, now would be a great opportunity to move to the cloud. And so typically what happens is in this first step, we decide, what licenses they're going to bring, who's going to perform the upgrade. Now, this is where we work hand in hand with the partners. Some partners absolutely want to do the upgrade for the customer. They'll do the upgrade and upload it to our cloud in the test environment, and we'll talk about that a little bit in step 2. There are other partners that we work with that say, you know what, it'd be great if you guys did the upgrade for us, and that way everything's taken care of in your cloud. So we can go either way. We leave that up to the customer and the partner and for them to decide what's best. That will then schedule that test and the live upgrade dates. So we like to do this in a 2-step process. So moving into step 2, we'll perform that test upgrade, or the partner will perform it, upload it to our cloud. And again, this is the new version, potentially 2016, that you're going to do this test upgrade on. You will have your older version still in place on premise, so you'll be using that still on a daily basis. But you'll have this opportunity to test and train and validate this new version in the cloud. And whether that takes you 1 week or 1 month, customers all move at different paces, and depending upon how complex your system is, you may need more time. And also, if you're a regulated company, you will need to validate and go through some steps to validate that upgrade, so you'll need some time. Also, during that test upgrade is when we test out all your printers, we test out your Outlook connections, make sure you can email out of GP. If you're looking to use the web client, this is a great opportunity to test and get trained on the web client. So partners take this opportunity to train their customers on the new features and functionality of the latest version that they're migrating to. Then once everybody's happy with that, we then perform the live upgrade. So again, the partner will either upgrade the system or will upgrade it. Typically, that happens much quicker than the test upgrade. It can be typically done overnight or over a weekend if it's a customer that has extensive amounts of databases. We see some customers that bring in anywhere from 20 to 50 company databases when they move to the cloud. So obviously upgrading that many databases takes more time, but it's typically done with minimal downtime to the customer. And so once everybody's up and running, that's when we start turning on our monitoring of servers and services. And similar to what Tyler mentioned earlier, it's something that you really don't get out of the box with Azure. It is something that you have to add after the fact with Azure and work with a partner on that. We can certainly help you with this. So the deployment can either be done in our private cloud, which is really where most of our customers go, or it can be done on Azure. The steps really don't change regardless of what cloud you choose. But one of the things that we're really well known for, because we do work with a number of highly regulated customers, is just the monitoring that we do and the transparency that we have back to our customers. So like Tyler, we're doing full backups nightly. We're doing incremental log shipping during the day. We keep a full week's worth of backups at our data center. And then once a week, those full backups are removed. Those are kept for 5 weeks. In addition to that, we do a monthly backup. That monthly backup is kept for 12 months. and it's overwritten on the 13th month. And as well, we keep, in addition to the daily, weekly, monthly, we also keep an annual backup, and that annual backup is kept for 7 years. And again, we do this with all of our customers, but the reason we do this is part of our regulated customers require this type of backup scenario, and so we just decided to do it for everybody. Again, as I mentioned earlier, once you're in our cloud, all of your upgrades and service packs are free going forward. So as part of your monthly hosting fee, we work with the partners and our customers on the timing of that. So you're not going to be pushed into an upgrade. You're not going to be pushed into a service pack. If you want it, you raise your hand and say, hey, Linda, we'd like you to apply this service pack. We're going to coordinate that with our partner, and we will do that. You can do that in a test scenario. If it's a small service pack, you can just apply it right to your live database if that's something you want to do. Of course, you're going to be working with your partner. They're going to be training you again on all the new features and functionalities of the service pack or the upgrade that you chose. But there are, again, no costs associated with truly doing that upgrade because we'll be taking care of that. And then, again, is all part of your monthly hosting fees. So I wanted to wrap with why customers choose RoseASP. And I found this cartoon, I don't remember where it was, but I thought it was pretty funny because, you know, if you go out and you get quotes from a number of different hosting partners, and there's some really great hosting partners out here in the ecosystem, of course, WatServe being one of them, but we all look at it differently. We'll all provide you a quote that looks different, and it's really, really hard to compare hosting quotes. It's difficult. So we actually, down below, and I don't know if everybody gets this deck afterwards, but if you actually go out to the RoseASP page, we have a blog out there. Just it's under the search, just type apples to apples, and there's a great blog post out there that will help you basically compare quotes between hosting providers. But one of the reasons, or several here, why customers choose to work with RoseASP, first and foremost, we have a very high customer retention, where typically in a SaaS environment, you see 90 to 95% is the norm in terms of retaining your customers. We've well exceeded a 97% customer retention rating for many years running now, and we're super happy about that. Typically, the only time we lose a customer is either they're being bought out. Occasionally with our life science companies, you know, they don't make it for whatever reason. You know, occasionally somebody goes bankrupt, but not too often. But that's typically the only reason we lose a customer. And once customers are with Rose, they typically stay with us. We're also not afraid to publish our uptimes. Our service level agreement says we're going to offer a 99.95 SLA, but in reality, we far exceed that. And so on our website, if you were to go to the front page of our website, once a month we update our published uptimes. So I'm going to be publishing a new one here in the next week, but our last prior 30 days, we had a 99.996 uptime, which is pretty phenomenal. And so we want to always have that level of transparency with our customers. If for some reason we don't meet our SLA, it's financially backed. So we will give you money back if we don't meet our 99.95 SLA. Again, I've already mentioned the upgrades at no charge, so I don't need to go into that. What does differentiate us from our other customers? I've been an auditor in a former life. Our Chief Compliance Officer has been an auditor in a former life. So we really understand SOX, we understand HIPAA, FDA, and we're really experts in that area. So we have a good chunk of customers that come to us for that level of expertise and service, because if you fail that audit, it's going to be a problem. So they have to make sure they choose a cloud provider that's very versed in that. And as I mentioned, we do have 25 years of experience with this product, which really gives us an edge. But not only with GP, as I mentioned, but it's with the ISV solutions that make up that total package. So again, hopefully you'll get this deck and be able to connect to that link. So that's really all I had for everybody today. I'm hoping that these last few comments have been helpful and making you think about what's required to move to the cloud and really how simple this process can be. And hopefully you'll reach out to me and the rest of our team to learn more about how we can help you with Microsoft Dynamics GP in the cloud. Thanks, Jason, back to you.
Thanks, Linda. All right, so now what I'd actually like to do is open it up for questions. So as I mentioned at the beginning of the session, if you have any questions, there's a Q&A box on the right-hand side of your screen. It looks like we do have some coming in right now. So I will actually, I'll read them off to you, Linda and Tyler. Tyler, why don't you start with this one? And I think this is something that you actually mentioned in your presentation, but maybe you could just sort of explain from a high-level perspective. But somebody is asking how your service differs from Azure.
Yeah, I think I hope I covered that in enough detail in kind of our presentation. But you know, Azure, it's a set of infrastructure hosted by Microsoft, right? It is still just a set of blinking light servers that you can deploy anything onto. So somebody, you know, has to understand the application that is sitting on top of those servers to provide the expertise and kind of the comfort level for the end customers to make sure that the application is running. So, for example, you know, like both Linda and WatServe provide, you know, an application level SLA. So you can pick up the phone and call our guys and say, you know, my Dynamics GP is running slowly when I do XYZ process in the application. That's the level of questions that we get from our customers. And if you to call Microsoft and call the Azure team and say Dynamics GP is running slowly, the answer you're going to get is the servers are running. Well, just because the servers are running, that's great. What does that mean for the application? And that's where you've got to have that level of expertise. That's the 40% that I was talking about in our presentation. It's understanding how the application sits on the infrastructure that you just don't get with Microsoft. And that's not Azure bashing. That's just a reality that, I mean, it is what it is. It is a cloud infrastructure, not a managed service.
Linda, anything to add to that?
No, he's absolutely right. I mean, Azure is a great service. We use it. We have people using it, but there is no SLA on the application. So it has to be done right. I mean, unfortunately, we've seen some people that have just loaded everything on one VM in Azure, and then they wonder why it's running incorrectly or slowly. And it's right. Microsoft is not going to, you know, you can call them up and they'll say, well, we see your instance is running. Sorry, you know, talk to your partner or whatever. So, and it's not Azure bashing either. It's just kind of the way that runs. I think really, you know, Azure is great. For many applications, especially e-commerce. I think it's awesome for e-commerce because it can really scale for that. But something as complicated as an ERP system, you know, it takes a little bit more to run that, and of course you have to have a really good hosting provider that understands that and can run that for you. But you know, you have the option. You can go private cloud, you can go Azure, or you can go a mix. I mean, we have some customers that use certain things for Azure, but go private cloud for their ERP system.
Great, thanks, Linda. So we have a few more questions. Linda, I'll actually start with you this one. So when is hybrid the most efficient model for ERP? Someone's asking.
Well, it really depends on, when you say hybrid, do we need a hybrid of on-premise cloud or cloud?
I think they didn't define it, unfortunately.
Yeah, so, I mean, I see people doing a combination of everything, and it really depends on the applications that you run. I do have customers that will run a billing system because they have a homegrown billing system that they want to continue to maintain on-premise, but then they'll put their ERP in the cloud with us. And again, you know, whether it's through web services or a VPN, I mean, there's a variety of different options where we can connect. You know, the data's going back and forth and there's no issues, or we're going from cloud to cloud. We see that quite often now, or we're going from, you know, that to CRM Online, and the connections there are all very good as well. So there's a variety of different ways you can approach this. I think you really have to look at your applications and you know, decide, you know, what's most important to you, and where do you need your uptime, and you know, it just varies by customer.
Thanks, Linda. Tyler, anything to add to that?
The only thing I'd say is, I think now, if you look at an organization-wide, kind of taking a step back from the ERP, I don't know that there's anybody out there who's not doing hybrid in some way, shape, or form, right? With Office 365, obviously being hosted by Microsoft, they could have their ERP in a private cloud deployment. They could have a file share on premise that they're still using for storing documents, CRM online. So I think whether companies want to call it hybrid or not, the reality is everybody's doing that, even whether the ERP is hosted or not. ERP could be on-prem and using Office 365. That's technically a hybrid deployment if you look at it, kind of from one level up from the ERP.
Great. Thanks, Tyler. Here's another question. Linda, I'll start with you. So somebody's asking what is the maximum number of users that can log on at the same time to RDP sessions?
Oh, there's no limit. Absolutely not. We have customers that, have tons of users. They're coming in from around the world, all different time zones. It's really a function of putting the right hardware in place for that particular customer's needs, sizing it appropriately from the beginning and allowing for growth. So no, there's absolutely no limitation, and there's not any degradation of services either. That's the beauty of knowing how this application works versus going to somebody that doesn't know how it works. I think both of us are quite versed in this application, and so, as we talk to you and your needs, the number of companies, number of users, the transaction volume, we size the infrastructure accordingly.
Great, thanks. Tyler, here's actually a question that just came in. I'll start with you. How do you see competition to partners from Microsoft providing their support managed services?
So I guess this partner or whoever's asking the question is obviously across more than one product, because from my last understanding from Microsoft, Microsoft is not going to be offering a managed service for Dynamics GP. They are offering it for NAV in a multi-tenant fashion for customers who want to be in a multi-tenant deployment, and I don't want to sound negative, the restrictions or kind of what comes across with being in a multi-tenant deployment. The partner can absolutely leverage Microsoft. I can't remember the name of what it's called, but they can absolutely do that from a NAV perspective. If you want a private type deployment, even up on Azure, Microsoft is not doing that. It is only multi-tenant. So that's where our Rapid Azure portal, you can do private deployments, you can do single deployments, which is what I find customers are more likely to look for versus multi-tenant. And then the other piece is the managed service from Microsoft for AX quote-unquote 7. We've been asked not to call it AX7, but that's, I think, kind of what the name is earned. But the reality is there is still a need for a managed service component. So just because with, lifecycle services on AX, just because you can go ahead and pick a server and put AX on it, you still got to know what servers to pick and how many and what the architecture needs to be and how to move code back and forth and how to troubleshoot performance problems. And so Microsoft is providing a higher level of service than they typically have in the past, but there is still a gap for a professional services organization to kind of fill the gap for the end customer still. So I hope that kind of differentiates across the three different Microsoft products and what they're doing from a managed services perspective.
Thanks, Tyler. Linda, do you want to add anything to that?
No, not really. My understanding is the same.
Okay.
So there's really nothing I can add to that.
Okay. All right, Linda, here's a question for you. What would you say are the major differences with a cloud implementation today versus earlier models for hosting of infrastructure and systems?
Well, a true cloud implementation today versus hosting, does include all the service packs and upgrades, right? you know, when we work with our Dynamics GP partners and they're up against somebody like Intact or NetSuite, those vendors are providing the updates and the service packs, right? There's no additional charge to the end customer. And that's what people expect now with a cloud solution. So, you know, yes, we started as a hosting provider, but the reality is we've transitioned to providing that full software as a service, whether we're providing the subscription licenses or whether the customer provides their own licenses. There's no difference. Once you're in our cloud, we're going to provide all of that for you because that is what is expected of a cloud solution. And it doesn't matter whether that's in our private cloud or on Azure, no difference. That's the difference between hosting and a true cloud solution.
Great, thank you. Tyler, do you want to add anything to that?
No, I mean, in the interest of time, I mean, I think Linda answered that fairly well, so.
Okay. All right, great. All right, so why don't we end there? Tyler and Linda, I'd like to thank you so much for taking the time to present the session with us today. I'd like to also thank all the attendees for taking time out of their day. We recorded the session. It should be posted online within the next few days. And once again, thanks so much for your time.
Thanks, Adam.
Yep. Thank you.